You got your catalyst pedals in, it looks like.
Yeah, I just got back from New Orleans last night and they were in the mailbox. So I haven't even had a chance to put them on, but I picked them up and played with them a little bit. I'm excited.
I hear you.
Excited.
Did you get your gray ones like you planned, or a different color?
I did. They're gray.
Very nice. Very
I'm
nice.
pretty stoked.
I'm thinking about throwing mine on this weekend as well. But hey, tell you what, let's go ahead and real quick throw the intro music in here. Welcome to another edition of Shiftless. And I do believe this is episode 9. Is that correct?
Seems like it.
I don't have anything specific to talk about today. Do you have anything in the books today?
Just got back from New Orleans, so still licking my wounds there. And then I get back in town and it looks like we have a chance of rain for the next 10 days. So trying to figure out when I'm going to get a ride in and what's going to happen. But I've also got to start getting ready for a catering job for this weekend.
Where's this job at?
Forestburg.
Okay.
Same place.
Okay. So is that potentially a regular gig for you going forward out there?
Yeah, I've been doing it. I think I've been out there for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
And I do about maybe 4 or 5 retreats for her per year. New Orleans was a blur.
Tell me about that. I thought you were, well, just tell me about it. I don't want to go on any assumptions.
Well, Paula was down there for work, but I was down there visiting our friends, and we went everywhere. I mean, did all the things, ate all the food. It was amazing. We went to the number 5 ranked bar in the nation, I think, called Jewel of the South. Their food was amazing. Went to Algiers, took the ferry across the river. I mean, we didn't really do any touristy stuff, but it was just good food and good drinks, good people. And the weather was nice down there.
Which actually in New Orleans, that's tough to pull off sometimes.
It's a finite window.
You said you did all the foods. What are the joints the cool kids are going to in New Orleans these days?
We did some stuff up on Magazine Street, which is just this long street that has a bunch of shops and stuff. And we went to a little quiet place called the Chloe, which is a hotel. And their food was really good. God, where all did we go? We went to a bourbon bar called Barrel Proof that was really good. We got there right when they opened at 4 o'clock, so there was not many people there, and the conversation with the bartender was awesome. Very informative, told me a lot of stuff that wasn't on my radar that maybe a little bit easier to acquire, and just tasting notes and what's trending. And they do a lot of bourbon competitions down there, so they have their ear to the ground a little bit more. And then we went to a natural wine bar, and that's a big movement that's growing a lot. They do what is it, direct contact wine. They call it orange wine. It's almost like a rosé, but it's backwards. I just got educated on a lot of food and wine, We did a sherry tasting. I've never been a sherry person, thought I didn't like it. Turns out I do. I was just drinking shitty sherry.
It's amazing how your tastes change when you find quality stuff, right?
Right.
I'm kind of fascinated of your perspective being the cuisine professional that you are. I mean, obviously, New Orleans is almost like the Mecca. Did you come across anything new or surprising or anything like that? Or did you stick with your standards? How does that work when Chef Brad goes to New Orleans for food?
Man, I just want to eat all the things. That's my problem.
No kidding.
Yeah. I mean, the most impressive place that I went to that I'll go back to for sure was Jewel of the South. Very small place, but their menu is just one page, and it's really like it's not broken down into like starters and appetizers or salads and entrees and desserts. It's just a list of their things they offer, and they're all like tasting plates. They don't tout themselves as like a tasting bar or anything, but everything we had from there was just unbelievable, just perfectly done. We didn't eat anything like just to eat. We ate everything because it was good.
How many days were you there?
We got there Sunday evening, and we left Wednesday morning. So we were there 2 full days. We ate at the Italian Barrel Sunday evening. That was really good. Kind of classic Italian, homemade pastas. They did a pumpkin ravioli that was really good. I didn't order it because it wouldn't be something I would order, but I was very impressed with it.
When you say a pumpkin ravioli, is that a pumpkin inside, or is that a pumpkinish pasta somehow or another?
Yes, both. It was the ravioli had pumpkin in it as far as the stuffing, and then the pasta had pumpkin in the pasta itself.
Interesting.
It was like a beautiful dance of savory and sweet, and it was very good. Like I said, I wouldn't have ordered it because pumpkin is almost like a trigger. Like every time I see pumpkin, it's just one of those things that's been overdone and overdone and overdone, and so it always it's a turn off for me. But I would definitely order that again. So shame on me.
It's pumpkin spice that's been overdone, not pumpkin itself.
Yeah.
That and the Han Solo boots and jacket. But anyway, we won't go.
Makes me giggle every time I see that meme.
Every time, because it's still true. That's the amazing part about it.
So true.
Man, it does sound like you had a good time, but it sounds like you need to find some saddle time in the mix as well.
Yeah.
To offset that a touch. I don't think the weather's going to be that bad, but maybe it is,
It doesn't look bad. It's just that we have a chance of rain in the 10-day forecast every day on the app that I work off of. What app do you work off of? I meant to ask you that.
I have several, but the one hold on, let me show you the one I play with the most now. Are you seeing that browser window?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So you see my weather map now?
Oh, wow. I didn't even know this animal was out there. Okay. Windy.com.
Windy.com. So this is current radar with lightning.
Damn. That's impressive.
We can see them now. Here's the cool one. So if we go to rain, thunder.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the moving forecast map here.
Oh, wow.
So we put it in motion. And if you look in the lower right, there's several models you can choose from.
Yeah.
I usually just stick with this default. And it's pretty close. I mean, obviously nothing is 100% out there. But I've had pretty good luck with this one. And it's making me hopeful for Hell of the North Texas this weekend. People getting into Irwin late might have a little bit of wet, maybe, but it looks like everything else will be pretty good.
So how far out does this go?
With the free one, it says Saturday the 20th.
Oh, wow.
And maybe it lets you just do that X number of times, then you have to get I don't know. I've seen it get to that point and say, hey, do you want to upgrade? I haven't yet.
I see the Go Premium thing dancing up there.
Yeah.
At the top.
Yeah. And hey, I'm willing to pay for stuff like this. I'm willing to pay for a good quality service.
Yeah.
And I probably will subscribe to Windy at some point. I'm still kind of test driving it, but I've been pretty happy with what I've seen so far.
I use Weather Underground. Caleb and I were talking about this the other day. It seems like it's been an increasing problem to get a fairly accurate weather prediction in the past year or two. It's almost like the models are changing, and the people that are making the predictions are still going off of old models. I don't know if that makes sense.
I've seen the same thing as well. I used to have some different tools I relied on that have become less trustworthy in the past year or so. And I think what most likely happened is a data source that many of them were using is either no longer available or cost prohibitive for them to use anymore. That's my guess as to what's happened. But like I said, so far I've been pretty impressed with the windy stuff in general. So I'll more than likely be signing up for the upgraded service on that one pretty soon. Even though I mean I get everything I need from their free service, kind of like Strava. I get everything I need from Strava free. Quite frankly, I don't need to subscribe to Strava to get the pieces that I use. With Windy, because it's still a useful tool, it does have such an impact on my business using their tool.
Yeah.
They deserve a few of my shekels, is the way I look at it.
Does Wendy have a mobile app?
Very much so.
Okay.
Yeah, very much so.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
I encourage you to do that. Man, I'll be honest with you. I'm feeling a little worn down at the moment, so I may not be my usual spunky and energetic self.
Did you ride a century yesterday?
I wish. I have not been riding. I have not been eating right, and I've been running around like crazy trying to get all these events done and new stuff lined up, and I think it's caught up with me this week. So we'll get through Hell of the North Texas, and nothing static on my schedule after that for a while. So that'll give me a little bit of time to get back on the straight and narrow, which I'm definitely looking forward to. The main thing that that I'm going to be trying to put together going forward is trying to figure out doing some bike packing and gravel clinics.
Yes.
Try to get that stuff up and running. New project. I mean, we've done little clinics here and there along the way. I think we're kind of at a point where there's some more value to it, to a wider audience, but I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. Trying to figure that out in my head. You have any thoughts on gravel and bike packing clinics, and who should be there, who shouldn't be there, what topics should be covered, who's qualified to talk about that sort of stuff? Not from an individual perspective, but what type. That's what I'm struggling with. Like, I don't know that I'm a qualified individual to give people advice on bike packing per se, but maybe I am. I don't know. I would love to bring in somebody that everybody can go, oh yeah, that's a credible source of information there, but I don't know who that is.
You know, I don't know how well this would lend to a format like you're thinking, but the way we've done in the past, we've taken a number of people through multi-day events, just through our little Denton Rambling group. And the way we've done it before is, if you have somebody that's a strong rider, both mentally and physically, and they're lacking equipment, we did a show and tell where, like, all of us that had bags and equipment, and we all have overrun because you get one bag and you think, well, this bag's better, and you buy another bag, and so you've got your older bags. And so we would get together and kind of show and tell and talk about the benefits of this bag and what I put in this bag and why it's good for this setup. And it's kind of a free flow conversation, but at the same rate, we were outfitting people that didn't have bags. Like, oh, I've got an extra frame bag, you need a frame bag, I've got an extra handlebar bag, I've got an extra seat bag, whatever it is, and I've got an extra coffee maker or water purifier or whatever. But in addition to getting everybody outfitted, it also kind of educated everybody on how to set up. And like I feel like I preach this all the time, but new people, the biggest thing I try to tell them is pack everything the same every time. Figure out what works for you, where you're going to put this, where you're going to put that. It makes it easier when you're unpacking. It makes it easier when you're packing. it makes you feel more confident once you're packed before you start your trip, because you know you don't have to go, well, I think I packed this, but I'm not going to go through 8 bags looking for it, or whatever. So I always put all my stuff in the same spot. It's kind of like keys in your wallet and your pockets. You don't put your keys in your right pocket sometimes and your left pocket sometimes, that kind of stuff. I think the biggest thing with bike packing is just getting someone to take that first step, go on that first overnighter. And then once you've done that, like we discussed before, it's just as easy to pack for 3 nights as it is 1 night. Once they go on that first overnighter, I think most people would be hooked.
They're either hooked or they're chased off,
yeah.
one or the other, which it's kind of your on-off switch. I agree that for that first trip. It's interesting that so kind of what you outlined there is one of the things I have in mind is what I would like to do is kind of have a round table of experienced people there along with the newer people. Because, I mean, obviously a lot of the newer people try to look at it from a very black and white perspective. What's the best bike to have? What's the best bag to have?
Right.
What's the best computer? And it's like all of it's right, all of it's wrong at one time or another. There's no perfect fit. You have to find what's best for you, and it is a process. It is trial and error, and it is, well, here's a bag I have now, but I don't really like that type of clasp, or I don't like that type of zipper, or I wish I was able to hold my tent poles in the top of it, or whatever else.
Right.
It's an evolutionary process, and that's why, having a group of people there doing a show and tell sort of thing, well, this is the way I do it.
Right.
But it doesn't mean it's the way you should do it, but this is why I do it this way, because I have this tent with these poles and it fits right up against my top tube. That works really well for me. You have a, you don't have any poles for your tent. You don't need that. You've got a hammock.
Yeah. I think the other thing is a lot of people utilize bags and equipment as a barrier for entry, and I don't think that's necessarily something that you should let hold you back. If you want to go bike packing, get some freaking bungees, get some Velcro straps, and just strap some stuff to your bike and just go ride, and then get out in the middle of, just go 10 miles and find somewhere to camp. You don't have to ride 100 miles the first time, and just take everything you think you need and realize that you're taking too much.
Right. I'm one of those. My recommendation for a lot of people, I wouldn't say most people, but for a lot of people, particularly the city folk, as I call them.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with just going car camping and bring your bike with you just to get used to the camping aspect of it and get familiar with, can I even sleep on the ground at all? Or, are the bugs going to drive me absolutely crazy? Or how do I build a fire properly? Don't overload yourself on the stress aspect of things.
Yeah.
Just get slightly familiar with overnighting outdoors first, and then you go, oh, okay, that wasn't too bad. So now it makes sense to maybe go ahead and get that one person tent and a couple of dry bags from Academy Sports and some bungees from Walmart, and you're up and rolling for $100 sort of thing.
Well, and the other thing is, if somebody's interested in bike packing, especially in the DFW area, all you have to do is put out a feeler somewhere, and somebody's going to help you out. I mean, there's bags for loan, there's bags for sale. Here's a good thing. If you're looking to get into bike packing, I think the first thing that you need to do is buy a bag. Just buy one bag, and I would say like a frame bag is probably a good place to start, or a tail bag, a seat bag, Both of those I think are fairly important. But like I said before, you don't have to have one, but just getting one of those bags, and then it comes to the discussion. I think most people when they first start bike packing are still going to drink out of water bottles or a Camelback, and unless you're going to switch over to a bladder in a frame bag, you probably don't want a full frame bag unless you have another way to consume water while you're riding. But just step out and get one bag, even if it's used, just to put it on your bike, see if it works, see how it works, see what you like, what you don't like. Kind of, that's where it starts, Put one bag, see how much stuff you can get in it, how to situate, how does your bike ride when it has weight on it, those kind of things.
I agree completely with the logic of that. I think both of us, though, might be a little bit... Yes, we both know very well, anybody that's interested in bike packing, realistically anywhere, but obviously in North Texas and Texas, there's plenty of resources to reach out and ask questions, and people are more than willing to be helpful. But lots of people just aren't aware. It's real easy to be paranoid about it if you're a newbie. Oh, I'm going to look stupid asking this question, sort of thing. And that's some of the feedback I've gotten on our surveys and stuff is kind of along those lines. It's there's a fear of the unknown, but there's almost more of a fear of embarrassment, for lack of a better term, which it's a real thing. It's something to be cognizant.
We were all just dum-dums at once, brother.
I'm still a dum-dum. I'm a complete dum-dum.
I mean, me too.
Happy.
But you don't get better if you don't ask questions, How do you know what you don't know if you don't start asking questions?
Exactly. And then and I guess that's kind of what I'm getting. There's a lot of analysis paralysis involved with it, where people keep creating barriers in front of themselves. It's like, well, I need to know how to do this first. I need to have that first. And they just build up this insurmountable list of requirements before they go out and do it. And I think both of us can agree there's just go do it. It really is that simple. Just go do it. Find out what you didn't like about it and adjust from there. Find out what you did like about it and do more of that.
And I think a good starting point, that is something that I didn't learn until years later, and I started noticing people taking pictures of their pack out. And I think that's it helps from a lot of things, is if you lay all your stuff out, you're going to pack on your bike and you're confident you're going to be able to get that in your bike, and you have it kind of, grouped, clothes and food and whatever, and, take a picture of it, especially on your first trip. That way when you get there, you know what all you have just by referencing your picture. And then at the end of it, you can figure out what you used, what you didn't use, and you can also look and go, I wish I would have had this. And it's a good starting point and gives you some actual, references. And even if it's, another 2 weeks, 2 months before you go again, you can go back and reference that picture.
So I sent out a survey letting people know that we were looking at putting some clinics together and wanted some general feedback. Like question 1, would you have interest in attending a bike packing or gravel riding essentials clinic? And gravel riding only, bike packing only, or both? And by far the biggest chunk is people want to do both, which I think that's
makes me
cool.
happy.
I think they do how far would you be willing to travel for a clinic? Now, this one threw me a little bit. No more than 30 minutes from my home.
Wow.
I don't think that's a realistic expectation, but okay.
Well, for a clinic, I just want to make sure I'm thinking of the same thing, like go and watch somebody talk and try to gather some information, right?
I hear let's see where the survey goes, and then I think this will even build on it a little bit more, that my curiosity about that result. Now, most people said 90 minutes or more. 90 minutes or less for 46%, 32% no more than 3 hours. So, I mean, between the two of them, that's almost 70% or more than 70%, which is nice. But I was still surprised by the chunk that I'm not going to go more than 30 minutes. How much time would you have available for a good clinic? So most said a full day at most. I'm sorry, actually most said I would, or the biggest chunk said I would devote most of a weekend.
Oh, wow.
Most of a weekend or a full day at most. That's like 46 plus 29%. So we're again over 75% there. So that's a big chunk, and that's a lot of time. And that kind of goes to, if you're willing, if you're saying you're willing to do most of a weekend, but not travel more than 30 minutes from your home, those kind of conflict with each other in my head. But maybe I'm off base. Of course, maybe it's the half day at most, are the same ones that said, I'm not going to go more than 30 minutes. I'll look at that. Pricing, I'm not too worried about that. So this
is the one I want to see. Yeah.
What topics are of most interest to you? Finding routes keeps showing up really near the top of the list for all of this.
Well, if you're a
stuff.
Spinistry member, there's so many routes available to you from Ride with GPS.
That's true, but it is actually almost overwhelming now. We have so many routes, so I need to do a better way of organizing them, and I'm working on that. But it's tough, because everybody's very, what they're looking for is very unique to each individual. That's one of the biggest things.
Yeah,
so
I want something that's 17 miles long and 80% gravel and less than 300 feet of climbing, and with a tailwind the whole way.
Tailwind the whole way and stores every 5 miles. Yeah. It does get down to that minutia. I remember there was one time somebody asked for a bikepacking route that visited some different forts, the old, frontier forts in the state, and went by a swimming location as well, but had, camping at, no more than every 40 miles or something like. I can't remember that level. So I put together an interesting route that met all of those criteria. Mm-hmm. It was like, no, don't want to do that because that swimming lake isn't clear enough. It's like, it's Texas. We don't have any clear swimming lakes.
Right. Well, there's a few, but they're all private.
So finding routes is a big chunk.
Makes sense.
And again, this is like the months of the year one that we talked about before. People could choose all the ones that are important to them. So this is going to be much more than 100%. But 64% of the respondents, finding routes was important. Creating routes, 42%. That's higher than we usually get.
Would not have expected that number to be that
high. Basic bike maintenance, almost 40%, which I get that, but man, that is so hard to incorporate into this type of clinic. Because yes, a basic bike maintenance clinic all to itself for a 2 or 3 day weekend makes sense. It's hard to put basic, because even changing a tire, everybody has a different configuration on their bike for taking a rear wheel off or whatever else.
Yeah.
And that even gets complicated. Basic camping, 28%. Nutrition, almost a third of the people. That kind of surprised me. Training, building, fitness is actually fairly low on the list, but that's one of those. I bang this drum all the time, and I'm going to keep banging it. I think that's the biggest hurdle that actually most people are up against for doing this sort of stuff, is that they're undertrained, they're underfit, and not that you have to be super fit, but you just always have to be at a level of fitness that you can take advantage of it when you do have the time to squeeze in a trip.
Yeah.
It makes, from my perspective, it makes a lot more sense to, oh, hey, this popped up this weekend that I wasn't expecting, or I don't have work on a Wednesday and Thursday for whatever reason, unexpectedly. I can go do an overnighter. If you're always basically fit, you can go do that stuff. But lots of people seem to try to put that carrot out there of, I'm going to go do this trip, I'm going to go do this event or whatever, and use that as my carrot to train for the next 6 months, 9 months, 2 years or whatever. And it's really easy to get distracted from that.
Just go do it.
Just go do it. Agreed.
Just do it.
Bike skills, a big chunk are interested in this. and I definitely see where this is coming from, particularly people with the road and tri background. Anything that's unpaved, they can start getting a little uncomfortable with, particularly if you start throwing bike packing in the mix and maybe some single track that people aren't used to and things like that. I definitely don't feel comfortable being the person to try to teach others how to ride a bike properly. So that's something I need to look into, is find, who might be able to do stuff like that properly. Basic first aid, 28%. Again, most of this stuff we're close to 25 to 33% of the respondents are into all of this stuff. So that's a lot to try to cram into one weekend.
Yeah, it really is.
Navigation, but that's only 25%. And that one really surprises me, because I know how navigationally challenged so many people that do our events and trips and reach out to us for routes and stuff like that. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that seems to be a skill gap from what I see out there, is people don't know how to work their computers. They don't know how to go that next level. They don't know how to go to a backup of some sort. But here's the one you're going to like. Bike and bags setup. 60% plus.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
That did kind of surprise me, to be honest with you. That I expected it to be a higher number. I didn't expect it to be that high. I see almost a full day just talking about bikes and bag setup and having that experienced riders roundtable presentation and discussion, kind of like we were chatting about, and just making that just like the core of the clinic, and touch on some of this other stuff. But say, there's no way we can teach you all of this in a 30-minute session. Sort of thing, but we can give you some basic things to be aware of. But I think focusing a lot of time on the bike and bag setup might have some benefit to it.
You know Dave Neves, right? Dave's not here.
Yeah, I do. I was thinking about him just the other day.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in forever, but I hear tell he's still around the Denton area. But he used to come and go on rambles with us a lot when he was, at the time, unbeknownst to me, was getting ready to do Tour Divide. And he was borrowing bags from me, and he was like, Brad, do you have this? And I was like, finally one day, I was like, Dave, what are you trying to do? And he goes, well, I'm trying to do Tour Divide. And he was on Specialized Epic, it's a full suspension bike, and he's trying to do all these different mods to this bike to do this gigantic event. And finally I said, Dave, look, I know that you don't want to get in over your head, but you're already in over your head when you're thinking about an event this big. I said, here's an idea. Go look at the Tour Divide, and literally there is a picture of everybody's bike that enters that event. And I said, figure out how long you expect it to take you, and then look at the people's bikes that took, if you're saying you're going to do it in 28 days, look at people's bikes that took 28 days and kind of work from there. And he's like, okay. And like a week later, or maybe 2 weeks later, he shows up on a Cutthroat. And I'm like, there you go. And then I helped get him outfitted with bags and everything. And then he went and did Tour Divide successfully. I said all that to say this: ride your dang bike. And then when you get like, okay, I want to do multi-day events and I want to do this, then start thinking about what bike is perfect. I think the bag setup is more important than the bike setup, unless you're on, like a beach cruiser or something, obviously. But I think most of like I told you, we talked about before, most people that are interested in bike packing are somewhat seasoned cyclists, regular riders, probably have more than one bike in their stable. So I don't think bike is a big deal at the beginning, unless you're going to go out and do a bunch of different events. I wouldn't suggest you go out and spend money on a different bike or upgrade your bike or anything, especially for the first one or two. Now, if you load your bike down and then you go, well, this bike just doesn't work, then maybe do a little redirection. But I would say bags and just your setup, how you strap, how you deal, how what you need camp wise and filtration, whatever.
The reason I was thinking of Dave the other day was it's like I th- I think he would be a fascinating guest for us to have at one point. Are you familiar with his rat trip? I think he's done it a couple times, but the first one in particular.
So I'm interested to hear this from your perspective because I've only heard this third person. And I'll tell you what I heard. It'll make it more interesting when you actually tell me. That he showed up and he just had stuff in bags, like not biking bags, just bags, and was like, "Would you carry this for me?" Talking to you. That's kind of what I heard. And then I was just like, well, that sounds like Dave. Shows up eager to do the event, but doesn't really know what's going on.
I think that's a good synopsis. A tad oversimplistic.
Yeah.
Let's qualify it one way. This was year one of the rat. So one of the options that we offered that year was a semi-supported option where riders didn't have to carry bags. I would take a duffel bag from overnight spot to overnight spot for some of the riders. And Dave was one of those that took advantage of that. But it was also understood that if they got off schedule, that I wasn't, they were going to either have to carry bags or make do without or something like that, because I wasn't going to be able to double back and, have two meetup spots in the same night or anything like that.
Makes sense.
Working from memory, and I'm getting old and senile, so my memory's a little off, but I do believe Dave stayed on schedule, so I think I was able to carry his bags almost every night. I think there may have been a point where maybe in the last day or two, he maybe got on a slightly different schedule and carried some stuff, but he knew it was basically a short run to the end.
Yeah.
So I think he may have been getting by with bungee cords and a dry bag or something like that. But what he didn't have, this was 2014. Granted, it was kind of on the front end of smartphones, but most people were, using an Edge, a Garmin Edge or something like that. He had no computer navigation. He was relying on like some crappy prepaid basic phone. And I don't think we were even using Ride with GPS at that point. I could be wrong.
I'm not surprised at all.
Very, very Dave,
Yeah,
right?
So Dave's not here, man.
Very much so. So I ran into him at South Plains, Texas, or near South Plains, Texas. Basically, that was the year we did the Caprock Canyon Trail. On the other end of that, and he was at a paved crossroads where he wasn't supposed to be. And I was like, "Where are you going, man?" He just looks at me, and in that day, what? I don't know.
I'm looking for a Spinistry arrow.
And then we go into the just Dave discussion thing where he's I almost feel like he doesn't even recognize who I am. So he brings out his crappy little phone, and it's not working because he has no cell coverage where he's at, and there's no memory in the phone. So then, none of the maps are scrolling, and I don't think he even knew how to work a smartphone at that time, quite frankly. And he's like, I'm supposed to be on this route, and I'm trying to get to somewhere, but I don't know where. And I was like, all right, well, first off, you need to turn around. You're going south. You need to be going north.
Oh, I miss Dave.
But all that said, he made it to the end.
Yeah.
And I want to say he was on an old 26-inch mountain bike for that one. Almost like an Academy Sports mountain bike or something. But I could be misremembering. He made it to the end, and I just thought it was kind of dumb luck at the time, to be honest. Dave, sorry, man, no disrespect. I love you. You've proven yourself to me
Classic
over
Dave.
and over since. And then, the next thing I know, he's showing up for some of our multi-day stuff, and it's always the same thing. I don't know where I'm going or how I'm getting there, but he got there, and he seemed to kind of, I don't know if he was technology challenged or just didn't want to deal with it or whatever, and he just always he plugged on through. And then somewhere along the way, the next thing I know, he just decides that he's gonna hike the Appalachian Trail. And he's never done anything like that before. And he did the Appalachian Trail exactly the same way he did at the Rat. He just shows up at the trailhead and goes and does it.
Yeah.
Having no comprehension of what, at least that was my impression. He didn't examine it closely as it's like, I'm just going to do it and learn while I'm doing. I really would love to sit down with Dave and get his perspective on all this, because maybe I'm seeing it wrong from the outside.
I think we all need a little bit more Dave.
I need a lot of Dave in my life. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, there's something to be said for not overthinking everything and just showing up and doing it, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a fine line there, but at the same rate, it seems to work for Dave.
And quite frankly, and that's what I would like to get down to is, because I mean, he's obviously a super smart person, and so if anybody that doesn't know him, this is not a dumb guy. Hopefully, I'm not painting it like that. This is probably. He's probably one of the most intelligent people in our circle. Would be my guess.
He's a retired engineer,
right?
And you got to be intelligent to be an engineer.
Hey, weren't you an engineer once?
I was a business card engineer. There's a difference, but so technically, yes.
Learning how to take gravel corners and downhills faster would be useful. So there's an example. I don't think a mountain biker would be throwing that one out there. Would be my guess.
Definitely not.
Best ways to get good sleep. Getting quality sleep when stopped is still what I am trying to master. And hygiene on multiple day outings. Saddle sores can steal your focus from the good stuff. Let's give people listening to this a nugget or two.
I want to stop you right there and add on to that, because I actually had written that down because I wanted to bring that up. The one question I forgot to ask our friend Nipper is if he rode with the chamois or not, because as we're talking about Dave, I'm reminded this is a guy that rode with the chamois all the time. And then in the, I want to say 2 weeks leading up to Tour Divide, he decided he was not going to ride with the chamois. And so all of his training rides for the last 2 weeks, before he shipped off to Banff, he transitioned away from a chamois. And he had zero issues the whole time. And I know that also Dana Birch has gone this route too, wearing like a wool compression underwear and using... I don't know if he used powder or balm, but
right.
Because that seems to be the guys that do the really long extended pedals like that. That seems to be one of the things: overuse injuries and saddle sore injuries. That prohibit them from carrying on. And I meant to ask Nipper that, but I did not have a list of questions. But I was totally blown away that Dave was, because I asked him, I said, how many did you bring a backup chamois? Because when he got back, we rode together quite a few times, and he goes, no, I didn't wear a chamois. And I was like, wait, what? And that's when he told me, about 2 weeks ahead, I just stopped wearing one. I was like, okay. It's tough for me to wrap my head around.
That's so Dave, though.
Yeah.
Well, again, from a promoter's perspective, from participants that do the rat sort of thing, there's no doubt that the torn up butt, whether it's saddle sores or just raw or whatever, is a big hurdle to overcome. but I also think that's one of those that's going to be so
Personal.
individualistic that I would be afraid to try to give a catch-all, because it's going to vary from everything from chamois or no chamois to the quality of the chamois versus the stitching of the chamois to the saddle to the type of bike that's being used to, are you riding drop bars or flat bars or air, all of those different things come into play on the butt friction issues for various reasons. I don't think myself there is likely a catch-all to it. I know for my own personal training, I try to ride all the rides I can without a chamois just to try to toughen up my butt. But when I do go on an outing, I usually go with the chamois. The big thing I do on a multi-day, though, is as soon as I'm done for the day, that chamois is off. And I am airing everything out as much as I possibly can. Now, it doesn't mean I'm walking around with nothing on, but I may be wrapped in a towel, and I'm highly considering converting to the kilt sometime this summer while I train up for the rat myself.
Not a bad play.
When I did the rat before, after a couple days, I was pretty raw, not to the saddle sore aspect, but to where it was like, yeah, this is some heavy duty friction. And basically what I would do each night is, obviously this is when I was moteling it or whatever, is I would get done for the ride, and I would clean up as well as I could. Obviously, if you have a shower available to you, take advantage of it, but you definitely want to get all that grime and bacteria and everything else out of there. But then what I would do, I would lather myself in Desitin. And that baby rash cream did the trick for me. I know other people use Gold Bond and stuff like that, but for me, that zinc oxide, that would do. I would just slather myself in that and sleep all night slathered up, and I would be perfectly fine the next morning.
So that's what you're using while you ride too, instead of like a chamois butter?
I never use chamois butter. And maybe that's to my own detriment, sort of thing. I'm the ginger guy, so it's it's not friction for me per se. It's the heat rash and the sweat and everything like that. For me, obviously friction's still a part of it. But I've never personally been a butt cream guy, a chamois butter guy. I've tried them over the years. I've never for myself seen an advantage for them. But again, I'm not saying that other people shouldn't use them by any stretch. But as far as the recovery aspect, using the Desitin, using the zinc oxide, that was pretty amazing what it did. But hey, if it does it for diaper rash, why wouldn't it do it for old man rash too?
That's fair, but my only thought process is if you're keeping that area so moist all the time, then it's going to make the skin a lot more tender and more prone to getting torn and rashed up and be more subjective to friction.
I wasn't using that Desitin until it was rashed.
Yeah.
I didn't use it as a preventative. It was like, oh, I'm torn up. It's a rash.
Yeah.
It's getting raw. Okay, because if there's no way without something that you don't get to the point that the next day where it's like, I'm so raw I can't even move now, sort of thing.
Have been a fan of chamois butter when I need it, and luckily chamois butter makes almost like a ketchup packet size, and you can carry multiple of those on a multi-day trip. And my go-to has been that, but I only use it when I need it. So I may be 2 days in, 3 days in, and go, might be a good idea for me to put some chamois butter on. You can take that little package and take the end off it, and you can apply it, and it's go time. But it makes sense. We spend a lot of time talking about pedals and shoes and everything, and this is one of your 3 contact points that is just as personal as pedals and shoes, you know.
Oh, I think more so.
Yeah.
And definitely it's an area, I guess there's a pun semi-intended there, that would definitely benefit from an expert viewpoint. I think it's likely to fall into a more general realm of a bike fit expert. But I would not be opposed to if there's a full level of expertise at the saddle, chamois, butt cream interface. That might be interesting. Possibility is Stratton from Starlight Apparel, definitely on the chamois aspect of things. I bet I can get the chamois butter folks. They've always been big Spinistry supporters over the years. They've helped us out, and I've probably still got a case of those ketchup packet chamois butters in the Spinistry trailer to hand out.
I'm going to date myself here real quick. When I first started riding and wearing a bib, they were actually chamois. Now it's all this synthetic padded stuff.
Have you noticed a difference?
That was forever ago, Kevin. I mean,
I understand.
I love modern day chamois. But once again, those are personal too, because some people can't ride in certain shorts, you know?
Man, I think it might be worth talking to Stratton over just chamois in general, not specifically to the multi-day aspect per se, but hey, how do chamois work? How have they evolved? What, how do different stitchings or seams or how does it play into stuff like that? And, how should people look at it from an individual standpoint? I'm sure Stratton will be the first to say that there's no chamois that's right for everyone, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that might be interesting.
That would be cool. I would be interested to know how someone that literally spends a lot of their time thinking about that interface processes that information and what they do in order to evolve, what that market looks like and the thought process.
I will reach out to him and see if he might be available somewhere down the road for that sort of check. Because I'll be honest with you, I'd never really thought about chamois that specifically and shorts that specifically, and now I'm curious if they even offer, like you were talking about, like a compression short without the chamois, or a wool short, or something alternative like that. And who knows, maybe it's like, hey, maybe we should look into getting something like that put together. So you said Dana uses a compression wool type short?
I may be wrong. I need to ask him again, but I know he went to like powder, because that was one of the things that he was trying to prevent was, saddle sores and rashes and stuff. And the thought process is, when you're sweating and you continuously create a moist environment in that area, and paired with the friction, that's what creates the saddle sores. And if you're allowing that area to dry and wick, which a lot of chamois don't do the best job of, you're basically, you might as well have a borderline Ziploc bag around your junk. Once it gets so moist and humid in there, there's nowhere for it to go.
Right.
So I think that the thought process is wicking all the moisture you can out of there to keep that area from, being wet. Because when your fingertips, when you're in the pool forever and they wrinkle up, it's super easy to tear your skin.
Now, when you say saddle sores, I just want to make sure we're on the same page, because I know some people use the term differently than others. Some people, saddle sores is just a broad term. Hey, my nether regions are sore, and there's some rash or whatever else going on. Other people are very specific. Saddle sores are a very specific ailment sort of thing. Are you talking on a general or the very specific?
I'm talking about like
a saddle sore.
I'm talking about like a wear mark. Like you've worn something raw. And then there's no way to get away from it. And then your default position is that. And so obviously your biggest contact point are your sit bones, and then you can end up with saddle sores depending on how you sit on your saddle and how your bike is fitted and everything. The biggest wear spot is going to wear, and then what ends up happening is you start kind of favoring, and so you're adjusting your saddle, not your saddle position necessarily, but you're adjusting your posture. Now this is where your knee starts hurting, or your Achilles starts hurting, or
there's another level of saddle sore that some people reference. That's a very specific ailment where basically probably pores get
clogged,
bacteria infection and clogged, and create a semi-internal issue as well. So that's what I was trying to get clarity on. And I definitely agree. The wear-based saddle sores are probably a more common issue. Yeah, I've never had specific wear spots per se that have been an issue for me. So, knock on wood, I feel fortunate there.
That whole interface of butt to seat, is one of those things too. The other thing that we have never mentioned in any of our talkings is, before you go do a multi-day event, especially, is don't ride your road bike for a month and then think, well, I'm just going to grab my mountain bike and go do a 3-day event on it. Before you go do an event, spend as much time on the bike that you're going to do that event on. And make sure it's fitted to you properly. I think there's a lot to be said for a proper fit. I know we keep coming back to this, but
unless you're Dave Neves, then you can do whatever the hell you want.
Just Dave it. And
I'm going to turn that into a T-shirt. Just Dave it.
But finding that saddle that works for you, because like we said, saddles are very personal. Getting measured for a saddle is kind of a good starting point too. Most local bike shops, if you go in, they'll have a sit bone measure device. You can do it with a piece of corrugated cardboard even. But just measure your sit bones. Make sure you're starting from the right point. I ride a narrower saddle. Some people ride a wider saddle. It's just finding that personal comfort, and then also making sure that your bike is fitted to you can alleviate, if not prevent, a lot of those issues in most people. And like I said, spending time with your equipment can do that as well, because there is a certain thing to be said for toughening up your taint. I mean, it happens. The more time you spend on your bike, the tougher that area gets, and the less it's likely to get injured.
I tell people it's like learning to play the guitar or the violin. It's the first step is you have to build up that toughness, those calluses on the. You're not going to be proficient at it until you establish that basic. It's a form of fitness. What you were touching on there, it's amazing how many people don't even realize that saddles are sized, and they have to match up to your own body, so to speak. I'm one of those. I mean, over the years I've had tremendous luck with the leather saddles. The older Brooks, before they changed over.
Are you on a how do you say it? Cadmium? Are you on?
I have that on a couple of the bikes, and it's pretty good. I would say I still like the older Brooks leather saddles better. The cambiums do have a texture to them, though, that does seem to be a little bit more of an irritant for me.
That's what I've always thought,
So I definitely prefer the smoother saddle. The newer Brooks don't last like the old ones for me. And I'm one of those that I was always better with the the super firm, super smooth brooks. I never got into the let's boil my saddle and soften it up sort of thing. Even when they're broken in and contoured, I still tension them up and make them as firm as possible. But that, again, we're in that realm of what everybody's different along those lines, and what works for me doesn't mean it's the right approach for somebody else.
I ran Brooks for years and years and years, and I went through them at a cost prohibitive nature because I was trying to be fancy, and I was running Swallow ties, and they were, I mean, the cheapest I could get one's like $250, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then I would keep tensioning them, and then I would just run out of room to tension them. So it became an issue, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. And then I broke one, and I mean, it's just, and then, I had 3 or 4 bikes, and so I had 3 or 4 saddles, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. So, but once I find a saddle, I'm going to put it on all of my bikes pretty much,
I mean, there's people that try out different saddles, like they try out different tires. It's like, well, this week I tried this tire, next week I tried that tire, this week I tried this saddle, next week I need 500 to 1,000 miles on a saddle before I even really have a good idea what it does for me.
Somebody told me a long time ago, and I think this is true with any piece of equipment that you're in constant contact with, is the best piece of equipment disappears. Meaning, when you go on a 50-mile ride and you never think about your saddle, that's a great saddle. Grips, same way. Shoes, same way. Helmet, same thing. If you never go, and have to adjust your helmet, that's a great helmet.
Just like an offensive lineman on a football team. If you don't even know they were playing that day, that means they did a good job.
Yep.
Well, we've been going on for a while. Where are we at time-wise?
Your screen must be different than mine. I'm on the old school format. Yeah, you can change that format. You can change that format a couple of different ways if you jack with it.
I don't mess with that stuff. I just hit the go button and just Dave it.
I love that.
All right, man. So I appreciate it, enjoyed it. It was good seeing you. I missed you not seeing you yesterday. Are we on for Wednesday again next week as far as you know at this point?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thanks for your time, sir. Have an awesome weekend and get you some miles.
All right, brother.
Okay?
Have a great one. Later.
Later.